welcome to Creators in Coffee. I am Erica Sietsma, CEO and co-founder of Autofluencer. And joining me today is Annie of Annie's VW on Instagram. Give her a follow. She has been in a process over the last few years of building out, what was it, 1969
Yep.
VW Bug? Helen's Wheels. And if you follow along, you've seen the journey, but you've been chronicling it for what, 2 years now?
It's been a few years. I started early March 2021. So it's been a few years. We're going on, I think, our fourth year.
Wow. And so with that, you are now at over 60,000, I think 62,000 on Instagram as of mid-January when we recorded this.
Mhm.
It would probably be more. I think you said you grow 5 to 10,000 followers every 90 days
Yeah,
more recently, because as you get bigger for the creators out there, the traction starts to build,
definitely.
right? I think what's really cool, there's a lot of creators that are maybe just getting started that have come to us for with questions and information. And I thought, who better than the people doing it to
Mhm.
share? And so tell us a little bit, when you started the restoration, you're a big DIYer, it was your first time. Did you go into this thinking like, oh, I'm gonna put a camera on it and I'm gonna be a big star? Did you
No,
think you'd have 60,000 followers on social? Did you go into it with social in mind, or?
no, I never. I'll tell you exactly why I started it. So I started the Instagram page because I wanted a way to chronicle and sort of document every single thing that I did. And I didn't want to do it on my personal page because I thought that my friends and family would not like it.
They get sick of it.
That they'd get tired of it and they'd say, enough with the Volkswagen stuff. Where are your children?
Kids,
So
what kids?
yeah, I don't have kids anymore. I have a Volkswagen. But really,
Yeah.
that's why I started it. I just wanted to start documenting it. And it was just a way for me to kind of log the things that I was doing so I could go back, because it's always fun to look at a project and see where it
Yeah.
was and where you were and now where it's going. And so that was the sole purpose. There was no social media sort of goals involved. The other thing was to try and connect with other Volkswagen folks, VWers,
Mm.
which was really easy to do. They're easy to find and they, are really engaged with wanting to see other people build Volkswagens and things like that. And so really it just started as a way, it was all for me and it still is all for me, but it was just all for me as a way for me to go back and see what I did and hopefully at the end of it have this big long chronicle of what I did and what had happened and just something to look back
Yeah.
on. So really that's all it was.
When did the following, right? Because it can take a while. When did the following start to creep up? Do you remember kind of what year where you're like, oh, shoot, this is
Yeah.
kind of becoming a thing?
So
Like,
what had
what was that?
happened? Yeah. So what had basically happened was up until I can tell you it was like about August 2022. August 2022 is when I started all the metal work. And I'd kind of
Mm.
committed at that point to kind of be working at a pace that was a little bit more consistent, getting in the garage more
Yeah.
often. And I also committed to doing just more on social media, not necessarily more posts, but I thought I'm going to start posting reels because I hadn't really
Mm.
started posting reels up until that time. Later on, I had kind of started to get more followers just from regular posts, just pictures that I was posting. But everyone said, you should be posting videos, do videos. And I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. And so, really, in August 2022, I started posting reels. Every job I did, I would do a 90-second reel. And for me, my process is I set up the camera, which is my phone, by the way. I do everything on my
Yeah.
phone and I just leave it.
Okay,
And
real
and
quick, I have
then
to
at the
ask,
end,
what kind of phone? Are you iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
that a problem?
No, no, I think people like to know, which cameras
Oh,
are you
okay.
using?
So I set up my phone and I record it, and a 90-second reel, I really only want it to take 45 minutes or less to edit. And so August 2022 is when I just started posting reels for every job that I did. And I noticed almost immediately that posting reels was getting me more views. I post a reel and all of a sudden I got like 20 people that would follow me off of that one reel. And I thought, oh,
Wow.
that's very interesting. So I just kept on posting reels. And I would say probably at that point I was posting maybe between 3 and 7 reels per week.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then by mid November, I mean, I was getting lots of success with reels. All of a sudden, my goal for that year was I thought, I want to have 1,000 followers.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I had at that point maybe 600. I thought, okay, 400 more. Let's see if I can get 400 more before the end of the year. And so I started posting reels, and I started noticing you get more views, you're getting more, eyes on it. People are following you now. And by November, the end of November of that year, I had one reel that went crazy and got 14 million views. And by the end of the
What?
year, yeah, by the and previous to that, my reels were getting really good traction. I would have 10,000 views, and then the next one would be like 100,000 views, and the next one would be like 500,000 views, and then maybe back down to like 20,000. But then what really kicked it off is I had one reel, one stupid reel that got 14 million views, and by the end of December I had 10,000 followers.
Wow.
Yeah,
What
so
was that one reel? What was the
mm,
topic of it?
it wasn't a topic, because if you follow me, you know that I just set up a camera and I just show you what I did for
Right.
that day. And
I know,
so,
but what were you doing in that
yeah, I'm
one?
going to tell you.
Okay.
So it was, yeah, middle of November, and I was just kind of like burning out on metalwork and the social media of it all, because it was becoming, I was getting into the routine of it. So I have a really good established routine now, but then I was still figuring it out. So basically I'd gone out into the garage and I just wasn't having it. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna set up the camera and I'm not gonna do anything. Like, I didn't change the camera angles, I didn't do anything on it. So it was my
Wow.
most like least effort reel that I think I'd ever produced, because I just was like, well, I got to do something. But what I was doing was I was just doing a bit of welding. And I don't know if it was the song. I don't know if it was because my welds were good or if my welds were bad. A lot of people said they were really terrible. So I don't know what it was that got that 14 million views. But I tell you, it was the most stressful week of my life. It was gaining about 1 million views a day for about 10 days. And so it was just kind of this wild sort of experience where all of a sudden, like every day, getting like 20, 30, comments on it. I had to turn comments off because it was just stressing me out so much.
Oh my gosh.
But what feels like happened, like, so the lesson there is it the quality of the reels, or is it just that had been posting so consistently that all of a sudden
Yeah.
Instagram and the algorithm was like, well, we're going to just push this one like crazy. So I don't really know. I don't think it was the
Yeah.
content of the reel, because I look at it and I think that's my worst reel I think I ever made. But
Yeah.
it's just funny.
Well, it's interesting. Now I want to go back and look at it. There is something to say, I think, with song choice. I don't know. There is something with song choice, and I think the visual of like watching welding, or like, I find that I get enamored with ones that maybe don't have any words in it, or they don't
Yeah.
have, but it's just like a visual element that hits, and then people like it. They share it
Yeah.
in their stories. They,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
do you want to know something that I actually do?
yeah.
Is I go look at my analytics and I look at who's following me. And it's 97% male. That's one. And then for two, it is mostly like the 30 to 50-year-olds. So, what I actually do is I go back and I find what was popular when they were in high school.
Oh, that's funny.
And
That's
sometimes I post
good.
something that I know that those dudes are just going to be like, yeah, great song. And sometimes that works.
That's a great one. That's a great tip for any creators. Know your audience,
Yeah,
know your demographic,
for
and
real.
align the song choice. I don't do that very well on our content. I pick what I like.
Yeah, and I
So
and I do that too. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, I mean, I don't go all into all the things I like, but I do pick a lot of what I like. But
Yeah.
that's a good tip. Those were awesome. And then what was that next, you know, kind of hit? So you hit 10,000 at the end of 2022. So you had 2023. Oh, really 1 year. So you went from
Yeah.
10,000 to 60,000 in 1 year.
Yeah. Once I hit that initial 10,000, that was like the crazy, crazy growth that happened. Like, I think I got that 10,000 in like 30 days. It was nuts. And then there is sometimes waves of where you're getting lots of followers. I think there was a time that there was like just randomly like a week where for about 5 days I was getting 1,000 followers a day, which is crazy. It's insane. But like you said, from basically exactly 1 year, I went from like 600 followers to now 60,000 followers. It's basically been a year. And I'm at the point now where I've got this following, which I never intended to have, but I have now. And I'm looking sort of to the future of what I can do with, if I want to keep the build going and sponsoring with brands and sponsoring, content and things like that. But I'm at the point now where like I'm so busy with comments and creating content and
Hmm.
not knowing how to like really reach out to the brands, that it's becoming something that's I don't want to stress me out, but it is stressing me out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, enter why we built Autofluencer. But that is such a great point, because I will say, and having been following you, you're at a big number. Like
Hmm.
60,000 is certainly the point that you should be getting paid. And I think that's one of the things, why we even started Creators and Coffee is to educate both brands and creators to know your value. Like if you look at, there's some data published around like based on the amount of just followers, which followers is one metric, but you
Yeah,
also need to look at engagement. And
definitely.
engagement is more than just likes and comments and shares. It also has to do with the quality of those comments. And
Mhm.
I think you also got to look at, and you and I have spoken about this, the DMs that
Yeah,
creator is getting
yeah,
and the quality of those DMs. Are they just people being like, oh my God, I love your stuff. Like,
yeah.
I'd love to meet, like creepos. Or is it more like, hey, what did you do that? Like, what product was that using? Do you really like that product? Or are you just talking about it because they're a sponsor? I've seen
Hmm.
those. And so, but these really high quality comments. And so, for example, like at your size, about 50,000, you should really be between $500 and $1,000 per post.
Hmm.
And there's data published about this. And now, obviously, if a brand's sending you a part or something you can use, that's one thing. But at the end of the day, what you're providing these brands and anybody that's a creator is you're connecting them with a highly engaged audience. And like you said, you have that DIY audience, you have that VW audience, the DIY audience, and they're very, very engaged, they're very curious, and they're usually a high spending. You even mentioned your demographic,
Hmm.
this these are people with money to spend, and these are things that, two brands, an educational pro tip. When you go to work with Annie for this, to finish up this build and future builds, absolutely, this is well worth your time and money because to produce content that gets the lift,
Hmm.
that you're getting, it would cost them thousands of dollars just to produce a piece because a lot of them, there's some that have an ongoing social presence. I think of the Hoonigans of the world
Yeah,
and some of the custom shops have great presences, but most brands haven't done the best job there in building that audience.
right.
But two, what's great about partnering with creators like you is each one has their own story
Yeah.
and each one appeals to a little bit different. Even if the demographics just by the numbers seem the same, they're usually still a bit different. Someone following a DIYer versus someone who's racing VWs, or, it's
Hmm.
going to be a little bit different. And you get those nuances. And that's why it's important to kind of, spread the love across those creators because they not only can create the content, but then they've got an audience.
Yeah,
So I think that's a huge point of as you grow, and for any creator watching this, even at 10,000, 3 to 10,000, you've started to build an audience and build engagement. There is value in that to brands. And I think
for
for the
sure. Hmm.
brands, these partnerships, this is the future. You read any publication, I spend a lot of time reading some of the big, what I call big advertising, but the future is the creator. The future is the enthusiast. This is the future, is working with creators and, people that are able to more deeply engage you with different audiences. So I love it. I love what you're
Yeah,
doing, Annie.
for sure.
Um, give her a follow. I'm excited to see, you think Helen will finish off later this year? What's the timing on that?
Yeah, so the timing on that is I believe as soon as I get her in color, we're just finishing off sort of all that. I think I can get her painted and in color February or the beginning of March. And then that downhill slope, once you have that, it goes really fast because the pan and chassis are done, the engine is done. We are just reassembling. So I can, like, hopefully, as long as there aren't many hiccups, I can get that on the road. I'm hoping by summertime, maybe fall, something like that. But I think that is a really uh, doable sort of time frame.
And do you have any plans for Helen? Like, is she going to go on any special road trips? Are there places she's been dreaming of going? Like,
I will
where
take
is she going
her
to go? What are you going to do with her?
I will take her anywhere and everywhere. I've made so many sort of great VW friends that I feel like I've really got to go and take her to see some of these people that I've really connected with. So, I mean,
Yeah.
California tour for sure, Las Vegas tour
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
Arizona for sure.
Yeah, there's actually a place here called Walter's Warehouse,
Hmm.
and they're big Burning Man people, but they do
Oh,
all
nice.
VW art cars.
Oh,
So
awesome.
and they have giant bugs, like these
Oh, cool.
crazy giant ones that are
Oh,
like
nice.
larger than life. So you'll definitely have to check them out, if you come. And I think you should drive her to SEMA. I think you plan that trip around SEMA and bring her out to SEMA in early November.
I would love that. That's actually really high on my list. I don't know if it's attainable or not, but SEMA, taking Helen to SEMA, I absolutely would love to take her.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then what's next after Helen? I know that now you've fallen into this. You've found the love
Hmm.
of working on cars and restoring in the DIY space. So what's next for you? Are you going to do another VW, or are you thinking something else?
Well, I actually do have another VW kind of on deck. It sort of fell into my hands as I've been working on Helen. I needed some parts, and my neighbors had one. It worked out really well, and actually, it's in fantastic shape. Other than a few mishaps with happened with some windows being broken out, but it's got very little rust. The engine was
Yeah,
brand new when it went in. The only thing is that it's just sat maybe for the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 years in the field. So it does need a little bit of love because doing a restoration, you're really creatively put in a box. So
right.
that's been good for me for learning. But for this next one, I think with this VW, we're going to Baja it and just kind of like sky's the limit
Ooh.
for creativity and just do some really fun stuff.
Oh, well, that is exciting. And obviously, that gets real interesting because it's a whole new set of components you're looking at in kind
Yeah,
of use
definitely.
cases. So it's super exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, great. Well, super excited for you, Annie.
Thank you.
Appreciate you talking with us here at Creators and Coffee. I do have to ask, what is your beverage of choice?
I'm not a super coffee drinker, but I got to show this for my any Canadians who are going to be watching. I do have my
Ah,
Tim Hortons cup. I don't know if y'all know what Tim Hortons are, but that's kind of a Canadian staple up here. So I'm not much of
yeah,
a coffee drinker, but I do love to have a Diet Pepsi very
that's
often.
your cafe. Yeah, it's interesting. We have a lot of people that are not coffee, a lot of energy
Yeah,
drink people, a lot of, I think
energy
the world's
stuff.
changing. So,
Hmm.
but it
Definitely,
goes so well. Creators and coffee,
for
you
sure.
know, creators and Red Bull just doesn't have the same ring.
Doesn't roll quite
So,
as well.
doesn't roll. All right. Well, thank you so much, Annie. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.